What's up, everybody? Welcome into the Next Pats podcast. I'm Phil Perry. We've got a great guest on for you this week. This is a conversation from earlier this offseason, but it's Sebastian Vollmer, former second-round tackle of the New England Patriots 15 years ago. Believe it or not, that was the 2009 draft class. Very solid 2009 draft class there when you consider they got both Sebastian Vollmer and Julian Edelman, cornerstone pieces to Super Bowl winning teams. But a fascinating discussion with him on a variety of different Patriots topics, but including the importance of addressing his position, the tackle position. And I think you're going to find his answer in terms of just how crucial it is to be a little bit surprising. You'll hear some surprise in my voice. But before we get to Seabass, we're going to talk a little bit about what's going on with our draft coverage at NBCSportsBoston.com this week. First of all, we have a mock draft that is up for you. It should be live by the time you're listening to this. And we're calling this the Tom E. Curran Memorial Mock Draft. If you heard us talk about it on Patriots Talk podcast, you knew this was coming. This is not an idea that I love for the Patriots. And if I'm a Patriots fan, I do not want this to happen. But this is Tom E. Curran's plan, and I do understand his reasoning. Don't take the quarterback. The team's not ready. Build the team first. So in our latest mock draft, we have the team, the Patriots, doing exactly that. They trade down from number 3 overall. In theory, they're not in love with the quarterbacks. They're not in love with the situation they're about to be maybe putting a young quarterback into. They say, screw it. We're moving back. And we're trading with the Minnesota Vikings, who very clearly want to get up to take a quarterback. And the Patriots take the number 11 pick and the number 23 pick, as well as a future first, which to me, that might be a haul you have to consider. If you're New England, I'm not sure that the value there stacks up with what the Niners gave up to Miami to move from 12 to 3 a few years ago and take Trey Lance. It's actually a little bit more than that package from a few years ago. But sometimes teams overpay. It doesn't matter what's on the trade chart. It really doesn't, especially when quarterbacks are involved. So for our purposes, though, we're going to focus on those 11 and 23 overall picks, as well as 34 overall. And I'll give you a little bit of a taste of how that thing's going to look when you see it online. So the Patriots move back. They take Troy Fautanu, offensive tackle out of Washington, with pick number 11. This to me is a really nice, snug fit for this new Patriots regime in that obviously they need a left tackle. Now, if you move all the way down to number 11, you're probably missing out on both Joe Alt and Olu Fashanu potentially. But for me, Fautanu is clearly a left tackle kind of athlete. And when you look at our prototypical Patriots offensive tackles list, you'll find him right there, even though he checks in at just 6'4". Not the end of the world if you're from that Ron Wolf executive tree. Obviously, Elliott Wolf would fall into that category. They're not as concerned, seemingly, about height as they are about arm length and athleticism. And Fautanu has both in spades. He also is a tough as nails type in terms of his demeanor on the field. This guy is mean in a good way and might truly have, even though you'd be drafting him to play left tackle, he might truly have 5 position flexibility. He's that athletic. He is that sound, it looks like, in terms of his technique. So I think a completely worthwhile pick at number 11 overall. Again, 34.5-inch arms, even though he's only 6'4". You know who else was 6'4"? One of Sebastian Vollmer's teammates. Same position, Matt Light. He was a second-round pick. He wasn't a top 12 pick. Be that as it may, I think it still could work with Fautanu on the left side. All right, let's get all the way down to pick number 23 now. And this is interesting because in my mock, you have both Amarius Mims, a tackle, still there. Kingsley Suamataia is still there. These are guys that, should you have gone with receiver, maybe taken Brian Thomas out of LSU instead of going tackle first, because the tackle class is deep enough that you could get another one at 23? Interesting question, in all honesty, and I'm not sure what the right answer is, but here in my mock, the Patriots take a receiver at 23. It's Adonai Mitchell out of Texas, 6'2", just a shade over 200 pounds. He's everything they need at the receiver position, okay? They are fully stocked in terms of interior guys, true slots. I still think they could use a Z, and we'll get to that. But in terms of real X options, they don't have one. But that's what Mitchell is. Ran his 40-yard dash, sub 4.4, jumped through the roof in the vertical, jumped in in the 98th percentile in the broad jump. This guy is an explosive mover. His coordination and his body control is really next level, in my opinion. And he shows the ability to be able to be a consistent winner in those contested catch situations to go along with all that explosive athleticism. So he can run by you. He can threaten a safety. He can catch and run and take it to the house. He's that athletic. But he also, in possession types of situations, maybe red zone types of situations, he has the size and the ball skills to be able to compete in those situations. The reason he's here this late in the draft, in my opinion, is because his engine doesn't always run hot. But if they can somehow get a little bit more consistency out of him in New England, I think this is a guy who is a true number one. And then at 34, the Patriots still have their second pick, or their second round pick, 34 overall. Then they get their Z. So we get two receivers go to the Patriots and a tackle. Suddenly your offense looks far different. You still don't have a quarterback outside of Jacoby Brissett, but their Z is Ladd McConkey out of Georgia. Now, a little bit lighter player, right around 190 pounds, right around 6 feet. But boy, this guy can run routes. He can align outside because he's another one, ran a sub 4.40, can threaten safeties. You at least have to have eyeballs on him because he is that fast. But he is so polished in terms of his route running, going to create some really easy throws for Jacoby Brissett or whoever's playing quarterback for the Patriots in 2024 and beyond, and can work that short to intermediate range. So you're looking at a receiver trio that is young and talented, in my opinion, with Mitchell at the X, McConkey at the Z, Pop Douglas at the slot position or the F. Then you have KJ Osborne in case Pop Douglas gets injured, which happened, unfortunately, for him a couple times last year. And then you've got your left tackle to go and be your bookend to Mike Onwenu on the right side. I understand this plan. Again, this would not be my plan. But if the Patriots choose to go this way, they are going to have pieces available to them to stock these premier positions. So there's your Tom E. Curran Patriots first and second round mock draft. Go check it out on NBCSportsBoston.com. Let's get to our conversation right now with Sebastian Vollmer. Big offensive line week for us this week. Our prototypical tackles are out there. We have them taking a tackle the first round in our mock draft, and we've got one of the best tackles in Patriots history on with us on Next Pats for a great conversation. Here it is.
We're here now with Sebastian Vollmer, the great Sebastian Vollmer. This will be the first time since maybe you were even familiar with the NFL that Bill Belichick will not be a head coach to start a season. Sebastian, are you surprised that he doesn't, at this moment, have a head coaching job?
Yes. I don't know what I was expecting, to be honest with you, but obviously with a resume like his, to imagine that he doesn't have a head coaching job is hard to fathom, I guess. I mean, I see the reasoning. I don't know. I guess I don't really know what I was expecting.
I wonder if it has anything to do with, and I think the Falcons situation has been reported on. They had a certain structure in place. Bill probably would want to install his own structure, which makes sense. If you're Bill Belichick, you've won 6 Super Bowls as a head coach. You probably feel like things need to be done a certain way. I'd like to ask you, though, understanding that you didn't play for another head coach in the NFL, do you think his style of coaching can still work in today's game?
It worked for me, and if I still played, it would work for me. I guess that's all I can say. It's hard. I think there are a lot of different ways to win. I think he has a proven way of winning. I think it needs a certain type of player to buy into that way of winning. Let's put it that way. It's not easy, but just because you have a more outgoing personality somewhere else, I don't think that means that it's less hard. I don't know, because it's hard for me to judge since I've only been at the Patriots under Bill. I don't know. Like I cannot say anything bad about it because it made me the player, I ended up being, and we won a lot and all those things. So I think it would, but I would admit that it takes a certain type of player, and I don't think every player can handle that. And I'm not sure, everybody talks about the generations, younger generation, older generation, all that stuff. I mean, they're 10 years apart. I'm not sure that it's a generation, but I don't know. I'm sure it's different coming from, college and the hype you're getting there, and then you go to a program that, where you got to re-prove yourself. It would work for me. For anybody else, I don't know.
It's interesting. I'm wondering if you, over the course of your career, Did you notice that as players got younger, it got harder to reach them in the way that Bill tried to reach them? Or was it not an age thing?
I think it's not an age thing. I think it's a mentality, player, personality thing. Because we definitely had rookies come in that weren't doing the stuff necessarily wrong, but not the way we as veterans were doing it for a long time. Like I learned, from like the Lights and Menkenses and those like guys that came before me or with me and then left before I left. You learn a certain way of play and try to give that back. And it's not necessarily just the play; it's the way you practice, the way between practices. It's the way you cheer on your teammates. It's the way when you show up, how long you stay. It's the extra work you do, like all those things. And I'm not saying that's right. It's just the way I knew, and it worked for me. And then I would say we had that with younger players, but we also had it with older veterans that came in and weren't used to that. I was like, I ain't doing that. I'm retiring. Like, go ahead. So that was kind of the thing.
That's a really interesting comparison that you bring up, because we saw that and we could rattle off the names, but it was hard here for older guys to come. And you would think, well, they're of a certain generation, so they should be okay with this style of coaching, and not necessarily the case. And then within your own position group, I want to say maybe 6 years after you were drafted, you guys get an undrafted rookie named David Andrews, who probably has taken to that style of coaching as well as anybody.
Correct. I mean, we had Scar. It was probably another. It's also a certain type of coaching. But again, like, obviously I understand why people are talking about it. It's a little fodder, let's say. I don't think playing the NFL is easy. Like, I don't think it should be easy. Like, everybody wants that job, and it's only a few that can do it, and like any other job. And that's totally fine. And yeah, I personally don't think it's an age thing. I think it's a personality thing. The way you're being brought up, and I don't mean this like with your parents or anything, like probably more like in your career as an athlete. So, I don't know. I think if he would have coached further, like I don't think, did he make any coaching mistakes? I feel like it was not necessarily the game planning or getting his team ready to play. Personally,
if you had to look, it was probably more the personnel misses that led to him no longer coaching the Patriots. You're probably right. I mean, no coach is perfect, right? So we could point to a botched timeout or a missed substitution or whatever, like we could with any coach. Yeah. But you're right. It was probably more on the personnel side of things where the errors came.
Yeah, and I mean, errors, I don't know, like almost 200 picks were passed over Tom Brady. Nobody knew. Like, obviously you get lucky sometimes. You get other Gronk the second round. Like, nobody knows.
You had a Vollmer in the second round.
Right. I mean, it might have been a reach, but no. But what I'm saying, like, sometimes you get lucky. It's and it goes both ways, right? You draft somebody high and it doesn't work out, or to the degree you were expecting it. And I think that's football as well. So I don't know. It's also a tough subject for me to talk about. I'm not to judge, because I mean, that man has done a lot for me, right? The organization has done a lot for me, so it's gonna be tough for me to hear a criticizing word out of my mouth.
Totally understand that. Your insight is very valuable to us and to our listeners. So it's a fascinating conversation, and it's not going to surprise me if we see Bill Belichick pop up as a head coach, not only 2025, but maybe even mid-season somewhere, 2024, if the right opportunity comes about.
No doubt, that man can coach. I mean, I don't think there's anything. I mean, the defense was great. Offense had its struggles, but in the end, it's a team effort, right? I mean, coaches coach, and players play. That's what he always says, and it's the truth. Right? Once you're on the field, you got to perform.
You were a teammate of Jerod Mayo's.
Yeah, love it.
Did you ever think he'd be a head coach?
Yeah.
You did?
Oh, yeah. He has that, like as a player, for example, you set him at the lunchroom, like by himself at a table eating. Within less than 2 minutes, I bet you 3, 4, 5 more guys would sit next to him. Just he has that personality of you just want to soak it in, want to be with him, learn, talk. And we've gotten really close over the years, and he's a leader. There's no doubt about it. Heck of a player, extremely smart, high football IQ. I mean, he ran the defense. And anything he touches, like in business, sports, whatever it is, like, I mean, it kind of turns into gold. He has a neck for being successful, and I believe in him, for sure.
What do you think is his biggest challenge right now?
What probably doing is getting his own personality onto that team, but coaches, I mean, there's a lot of coaches he has lost or didn't renew, whatever the situation there is. Getting players, building a team that reflects him. Like, I mean, if you look at Detroit, right, Dan Campbell, I mean, it took him 3 years, which I feel like it's a short period, but obviously they were really good. But the first year wasn't that great. But I mean, you gotta get the players. You gotta have them buy into your style of coaching and your defense and your offense, whatever you do. But I think he's a great leader. I'm assuming he's gonna put the right people in the right positions to be successful.
I want to ask you a draft question quickly before I let you go. They need a quarterback, it seems. Yeah. They have a very high pick. Tackles not named Sebastian Vollmer, oftentimes get drafted near the top of the draft because guys that look like you and can move like you are pretty rare. Should they be using their first pick on a tackle before they try to drop a quarterback into a situation that I think any football person would say is not an ideal situation for a young quarterback right now?
Really argue both ways. Like, I think if you have a quarterback, if you have a CJ Stroud, right, I mean, you can make a lot of things look good, but it's also rare that you have a rookie quarterback develop to that degree, that quick, if you're being under duress. So I think that would depend on, so I think with the right system and a great quarterback, you can eliminate some offensive line play. And we saw it with Tom, right? Like, not saying that, I mean, there were some times to struggle, but still, as any team would, we still won. Probably not fair to put the Tom Brady umbrella over a rookie quarterback if you draft him. I would go, if it's the quarterback you want, I would take him. If it's not, I wouldn't reach for the guy you kind of don't want, because he's going to be in the same position unless he really develops into something. Then I would go for a tackle.
That's fascinating. The offensive tackle says go quarterback in the first round if it's the right guy. Well, I would have figured we would have had a much more biased perspective from you.
I feel like it's going to be hard to win a lot of championships without a great quarterback. I think it can happen, but I think it's not a dynasty that what you're building. I mean, Mr. Kraft is pretty clear, and we're going to go back to winning. And if you don't, and I think if with an okay tackle, you can still accomplish that.
Great stuff there from Seabass. Always great to catch up with him. It was a fun night, a media night. I just love the fact that we're able to continue to unload interviews that we've had with some great people, some really smart people over the course of this offseason on you guys here on Ex-Pats. This is the right time. We're finding the right time for these conversations and the right moments. Hopefully you guys are learning something from all these people we have on. I know I learned a lot from Sebastian Vollmer. I always do. Really, really bright guy. Thank you guys so much for listening to this edition of the Ex-Pats podcast. We're going to have another one for you later this week. We've got more offensive linemen on tap. Can you believe that? I know. Sexy, right? Keep an eye out for that, and we'll talk to you very soon right here on Ex-Pats.